The night train ran slow through the snow country, the way the night trains always did, in no particular hurry to be anywhere before the morning. In the dining car, near the middle of it, where the little lamps burned low and gold on every table, a steward named Alden kept his quiet watch. He had worked the overnight run for the better part of 30 years, and he had come to think of the dark hours as the truest part of the journey. In the daytime, the car was full and loud, and people wanted things quickly and paid little mind to the country slipping past. But at night, when most of the train had gone to its berth to sleep, the car belonged to the few who could not, and to Alden, and to the great brass urn that he kept always warm, hissing softly to itself in the corner like a contented cat. He liked the night people best. There was a gentleness to travelers in the small hours that the daylight never quite allowed. A person alone at 2 in the morning, watching the snow go by, is closer to their true self than they will be in all the rest of the day. Alden had come to feel it a kind of privilege to keep company with people at such an hour, and to ask nothing of them at all but that they let him warm their cup. There were not many aboard tonight. An old man near the far end sat with a cold cup of tea and a book he was not really reading, watching the snow instead. A young soldier dozed against the window, his cap tipped down over his eyes, going home or going away, Alden could never tell which. And a mother with a small sleeping child bundled across her lap sat very still, so as not to wake the little one, and gave Alden a tired and grateful smile when he set a pot of warm milk quietly at her elbow without being asked. He knew, without being told, what each of them wanted, for 30 years of nights had taught him the small language of the weary. A refill for the old man, a blanket tucked without fuss over the sleeping soldier. Quiet mostly. The night people wanted quiet and warmth and the sense that someone kind was near if they should need him. He had a way of moving through the car that disturbed nothing, a slow and practiced quiet, so that a dozing traveler might feel the warmth of a fresh cup appear at their elbow and never quite wake to see it come. It was not a grand skill. No one had ever thanked him for it in any way that the world would think to count. But Alden had decided a long time ago that there were worse things for a man to be good at than the easing of other people's nights, and he had never once regretted the deciding. It was a little after 1 in the morning when the door at the end of the car slid open and the young woman came in. She was young, perhaps 19 or 20, in a good coat that had been brushed with care, and she carried a small case that she did not want to put down. She stood a moment in the doorway as though unsure she was allowed, and Alden, who had seen a great many people stand exactly so, gave her the particular smile he kept for them, the one that said, "Of course you are welcome. Come and sit. There is nothing to be afraid of here." She chose a table near the middle, not too close to anyone, and she set her case on the seat beside her, close, and she folded her hands on the table and looked out at the dark and the snow. Alden gave her a little while. Then he came, without hurry, and asked, gently, whether she would like something warm. It was a cold night, he said, and the country outside was colder, and there was nothing in the world that a cup of something hot could not make just a little more bearable. She looked up at him, and he saw that her eyes were bright, the way eyes are when a person has been very close to tears and is holding them back with both hands. He brought her tea, sweet and strong, in one of the good cups, and a small plate of biscuits that he said were left over and would only go to waste otherwise, which was not entirely true, but was the sort of small untruth that kindness is often made of. She wrapped both her hands around the warm cup, as though it were the first warm thing she had touched in a long while. And after a time, because the dark and the snow and the quiet have a way of loosening what the daylight keeps locked, she began to talk. She was going to the city, she said, to take up a position, a good one, with people she had never met, a long way from the town where she had lived her whole life. She had left that morning from a platform where her mother had held her too long and her father had not known what to say, and she had been trying all the long days since to feel brave about it, and she found that she could not quite. She was afraid. She had not said it aloud to anyone. All her life, she had known every face on her street, every shopkeeper by name, the exact sound the garden gate made, and the way the light fell in her mother's kitchen in the afternoon. And now she was to leave the whole of it, every familiar thing, for a city where not one single soul knew her name. and she did not know how a person was meant to do such a thing, or whether she was the sort of person who could. She had smiled on the platform because her mother was watching. She had not stopped being afraid for 1 single mile since. But she said it now to the kind stranger with the warm tea in the middle of the night because somehow that made it easier. Alden listened the way he had learned to listen, without hurry and without trying to fix anything. For most things do not want fixing so much as they want here. And when she had finished, he did not tell her that there was nothing to be afraid of, because that would not have been true, and she would have known it. Instead, he sat down across from her, just for a moment, which he almost never did, and he told her a small thing that he had learned from 30 years of night trains. Everyone on this train tonight, he said, is between one thing and the next. That is what a night train is for. No one rides it because they have arrived. They ride it because they are on their way. He nodded toward the dark window and the snow and the sleeping shapes of the other travelers. That old man is going to see a brother he has quarreled with, to try to set it right before it is too late. That soldier does not know yet whether he is going toward his life or away from it. That young mother is carrying her child to a place she hopes will be kinder than the one they left. Not one of them is certain how it will turn out. And yet here they all are, riding through the dark, because the only way to the morning is through the night. You are in good company, he said. The best company there is. The company of people being brave without feeling brave. That is the only kind of brave there ever really is. She turned that over for a moment. How do you know all that? She asked. About the others. The old man and the soldier and the mother. Alden smiled and rose to fetch the pot and warm her cup again. I do not truly, he admitted. I have made most of it up from the look of them. But it is the sort of thing that is nearly always true on a night train in one form or another. We are none of us as alone in it as we feel. That part one did not invent. That part one I am quite certain of. The young woman was quiet for a while after that. She drank her tea, and she ate a biscuit, and some of the tightness went out of her shoulders, the way it does when a fear that has been carried alone is at last set down, even a little, even for a moment, in front of someone kind. Alden rose and went back to his urn and left her to her thoughts, for he knew that comfort, once given, is best left to do its quiet work in peace. But before he went, he did one more small thing. He took a scrap of paper and his stub of a pencil, and he wrote something on it, and he set it beside her cup as he passed. On it was the name of the tea shop, a small warm one on a quiet street in the city, run by a friend of his, where he said a person newly arrived and knowing no one at all might go on a lonely evening and be certain of a warm welcome and a good cup and a kind word. Tell her Alden sent you, he said. She will look after you. She looked after me once, a long time ago, when I was young and afraid and on my way to a new life on a night train, exactly like you. The young woman slept. After that, her head against the window and her small case held safe beside her, and Alden made sure the blanket did not slip from her shoulders as the hours went by and the dark thinned toward day. The snow stopped a little before dawn, and when the first gray light came up, it came up over the far rooftops of the city, spread out ahead of them now, waking, its 1,000 windows beginning to catch the light one by one. The young woman woke and looked out at it, and Alden watched her face and saw that the fear was still there, of course, for fear does not simply vanish in a night. But beside it now, there was something else, a readiness, the particular courage of a person who has ridden through the dark and come out the other side into the morning, and found that the morning came after all, exactly as it always does. She sat a while longer, watching the city come toward them, and Alden brought her one last cup and would not let her pay for any of it, though she tried. It was the houses, he said, on the last night of a long journey. And privately, he thought that the fare for a night train ought never to be only money, in any case. It ought to be a little kindness, passed quietly along, from the ones who have already made the crossing to the ones only now setting out. That was how he had been carried once, when he was the frightened one. And that was how he meant to go on carrying others, for as long as the night trains ran through the dark toward the morning. Thank you, she said to him at the door, holding her small case and her scrap of paper with the address upon it. Thank you, said Alden, for the company. The nights are long on the night train. It is good to share them, wherever you happen to be tonight, and whatever quiet task is keeping your hands busy. Thank you for spending this little while here with us. Rest easy, and whenever you are ready, there will always be another story waiting.